thinking, master your mindset with Nate Schooler and Kim Adele.
Hey.
Hey, Kim. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
I'm good. I'm very good. I'm just getting to grips with leadership skills for the future. And this is pretty serious stuff here, right? Because, everyone says things have changed, the landscape's changed, and, all of this kind of stuff, right? The environment's changed and all of these things, right? But it's like people still want to be listened to. They want to be understood. And what's the other one?
Respected.
There we go. Respected. What have you got there? Have you got a little puppy there?
Bye. Yes, I have.
And he's being very well behaved. Oh, bless him.
But he wanted to join in, so he's come to sit on my knee.
I know he does. So, what are the most important leadership skills for the future, Kim?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we know that the one thing that is constant in life pretty much is change. So we are always changing. We're always evolving. As we've got ongoing digitalization and automation, things are moving. Things are always changing. And one of the places that I always go and have a good read every year is the World Economic Forum, because they always have a look to the future and say, okay, what are the skills that we're going to need to continue to be effective as we move forward? And for a period now, they've had things like complex problem solving, critical thinking, automation and use of technology, leadership, amongst others. But in the most recent report, which was produced last year, it's actually added in 2 new skills that have grown in their importance to make it into that top 10. And that is around self-management and resilience. And as we know, for many leaders as well now, it's about how do we lead effectively and support our teams in the new hybrid world of work. So how do we make sure that everybody is successful and set up for success? And it's one of the things that people have been talking about for quite a while. It's like, how do we create the right culture, the right environment, the right infrastructure for our people to ensure that they've got everything that they need, and that equally as leaders, we've got everything that we need to be able to provide that ongoing support for our people.
So it's really expanding a lot on the mental health kind of angle that a lot of businesses have kind of begun to embrace fairly recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think employee well-being and our support. Sorry, I'm being slightly attacked by a 10-week-old puppy now. Employee well-being has always been really, really important. I think the pandemic has shown us that as leaders, it's equally important that we consider and put the right things in place for ourselves, for our own well-being, because actually if we're not where we need to be, then we're not going to be able to be effective for our people. So we've got to make sure that actually we're taking time for that self-care. And often that's the thing that we forget to do as leaders, because we're busy supporting others. But if we don't support ourselves as well, we won't be there to be able to support others in the way that they need to be supported. So I think it really is about making sure that we are doing for ourselves in the same as we do for our people. And sometimes it's about learning how to share our vulnerability without losing our credibility, making sure that actually it's okay for us to share with our people that sometimes we're feeling a little bit vulnerable about it too. Maybe we're missing that social interaction of being in the office. And in doing so, you create a space where it's okay for your people to also be saying that they too are finding it difficult to not have that same social interaction, to not be in that place of the office banter, the water cooler moments where you just have a chat. We miss some of those. Or the fact that you're dependent on what's happening at home, whether or not we've got the luxury of having a separate space that we can shut the door on at the end of the day and still feel like we're having some barrier to what it is that we're doing. So, really thinking about when we're looking at the hybrid working world, making sure that we're matching the task to the location. So which tasks are better to be in the office where we're all together, and which tasks are actually better suited to us being able to do them on our own at home. And that can really help our people and ourselves to be set up for success, making sure that we're thinking carefully, not just about what we're doing, but where we're doing it.
Yeah, and then there's also this kind of, a lot of people have been sort of having back-to-back Zoom meetings without any breaks. Sometimes I know we're guilty of that, right? But we're aware that this causes a loss in productivity, really, and actually it's sort of, a lot of these meetings, I mean, not our meetings, of course, Kim, but a lot of these meetings are kind of ineffectual, right? And actually there's no clear strategy behind, like, why are you having a meeting? Like, that's why back in the old days you could have like a stand-up meeting, right, and only the right people would be invited, and then you have a structure in place, and but like, I've heard of so many poorly run businesses where, unfortunately, they don't really have any kind of strategy at all behind this,
Well, no, and I think it's like knowing what your purpose is. It's like, what's the point? What are we trying to get out of this? It's a little bit like, when I deal with people about board governance and how they get used to being able to create the right structure for their organization to be effective. One of the things that I talk about is, before you go in front of the board, you need to know what it is you're asking. So either you're there because you want to get you want to get their agreement that you're going to do something, so it's decision making, or you want to give them an update on a previous decision, or you want to inform them of something that's coming down the line. But be very clear what your purpose is, and then make sure that you've got what you need for that purpose to be achieved. And I think the same is true. We do have too many back-to-back meetings, and I see a lot of this, and then a lot of people that are really struggling with where do I actually get the work done? Where's my time to actually create the actions? And particularly as we've moved into more hybrid working, and specifically when we were doing a lot of remote, people would feel very nervous about blocking time out of their calendar to do the work, because they didn't want people thinking that meant that they weren't working, they weren't available for work. But actually, you do need the time to be able to actually do the actions, to move the things forward. If not, all your meetings are about is why the actions haven't been taken. I'm sat in meetings and I can't do it. So really thinking about how we structure our day, and that's something that we've worked on really hard this week, isn't it? Is we were working really, really hard, but we weren't being very conscious with the choices that we were making. We weren't saying, right, these are all the actions that need to be taken. Let's be consistent. Let's be specific. This time is for this action, rather than, well, we'll get those 4 things done today and we'll spend 2 hours getting them done, and then get to the end of the day and go, well, we've done 2 of them, not 4 of them, but we did these 5 other things that weren't very important. So it's really making sure that we create that discipline, and ensuring that we have a bit of time in the morning where actually we're not meeting because we're doing the work, so that when we do meet later on in the morning, we've actually done everything we said we were going to do yesterday, and we're now ready to move forward with what we need to do today. And that's really helped us move things off that to-do list, so that it isn't just a case of, the only thing that moves on the to-do list is the date, which we can often be guilty of.
Yeah, well, it's really frustrating actually working lots and lots of hours because it's so easy to waste time in the digital world, right? I mean, my dad used to say work fills available time, and I know he coined that from someone else, right? But he used to say that a lot, and it really does. And it's just like, and what I'm finding is the way that we're kind of working, we're almost close to the kind of Pomodoro method, where you come in, you've got your task to do, you focus on it, you get it done, you finish, you have a break, right? Because the thing is, the way I look at it is if you have a break and you've actually got enough energy to look at social media, then you haven't been working hard enough, as far as I'm concerned. Like, that's if it comes to the end of your 50 minutes, right, of work, and you literally aren't exhausted, then you haven't concentrated enough, as far as I'm concerned. And that's how this week we managed to cut our working hours down from silly amounts to far less,
Yeah, but for me, actually, I haven't felt exhausted, because I've been energized in what we're doing, and because I've got specific time for the things that I know zap my energy. And it's like, right, I've only got to do an hour of that. If I get it done in that hour, I can reward myself by going and doing an hour of this that I really enjoy. So I think it's taking the time as well to see how far you've come, to see what successes you've made, and to give yourself either the congratulations for having done it, or the talking to say, get on and finish it now. Like, let's get this done. You've not done it and you're procrastinating. So why is that? Because we can all be guilty of that silent delaying, where we're violently agreeing that something needs to be done, but then we waste our time just polishing it up or saying, well, yeah, it'd be really better if it was in an ever so slightly brighter shade of red, or it's going to be this. And actually, is that really going to add any value? Or is it just going to be a reason for us not to put it out into the world because we're holding back from taking those risks? Because it's hard sometimes to take those risks, to go out there and say, this is what we're doing. Are you up for it? Does this benefit you? Because we're doing it because we hope it benefits. If not, we wouldn't be doing it. But it's taking that step for businesses, isn't it? It's getting them to be comfortable to put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this week we've actually done a lot more work than we've done, I would say, in 2 weeks, in much less time, because it's been like, well, what are the tasks every day? You know, we've come along and said there's 3 things we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. These 3 things are going to move the needle, right? They're going to move our business forward. And like those focused tasks, whilst they haven't been easy, they've made me feel good, I think, at the end of the day, and you as well, providing we get them done, right? And obviously there's always improvement, right? We always need to improve. But in terms of like leading people forwards, what do you think are like, so you kind of talked a bit about it, but what do you think are like the most important things that leaders can do in the next few months?
I think some of it is continuing to invest in themselves so that they're constantly evolving, because the world's evolving. We need to evolve to be able to meet those needs. And, you know, as we've talked about before, I think there's 4 C's when it comes to leadership. You've got to have clarity on where you're going, the confidence that either you've got the skills, or you've got the people with the skills, or that you can get the skills to get there. You've got to commit to taking the action, and then you've got to communicate all of the time so that everybody knows exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what part they play in it. And if we can get those parts moving, then that's when we're at our most successful. So it's really thinking about, if things aren't working, which one of those 4 is missing, or maybe there's more than one of those 4 that's missing. So how do we keep going and make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success? How do we give ourselves the time to invest in ourselves? That's one of the things that I hear the most from clients, is it's really difficult to find the time to invest in myself. But actually, once they do, and they realize how much more productive, how much more successful they are, they actually get a return on investment of that time back really quickly. Because for us, you know we've been working really hard, doing loads of hours, but we've been working on stuff that probably didn't add any value. So asking ourselves, why am I doing this, and what benefit is it going to have to my client, to my colleague, or to myself? And if I can't answer that question, chances are it's not really adding any value. And therefore it is just, it's filling the time, and time will fill itself. That is one of our constants. So, you know, in Lean, one of the things that we look at is where there is non-value add waste. So this is where it doesn't add any value to anybody. Now, sometimes you have to have some non-value add waste, because it's there. It might not feel like it's adding benefit to the client or to the colleague or to you, but there might be a regulatory or a legal reason why it's got to be done. But if it doesn't have a legal or regulatory reason, and it's not adding any value to the business, to your people, or to your clients, then actually don't do it. And that's one of the hardest things to learn in leadership, is not just what to start doing, but what to stop doing. What is it that we need to say, actually, I've been doing it for ages, but I'm still doing it now just because I've been doing it for ages. And it almost feels like continuing to do it allows me to justify why I've been doing it so long, rather than going, what would happen if it stopped? When I go into organizations all the time, and you see this a lot with MI, you go into organizations, they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reports, and they're producing these often manually, because it's usually the thing that we take out of the initial scope of any new system and say we'll get to it later, and then we create a cottage industry of coming up with the MI to help us understand how successful we're being. But what you find is, I did it in one organization, and there was something like 1,800 reports that were being produced. And I said, do me a favor, don't stop producing them, because it's harder to start them again, but just for a fortnight, don't send them out, and just see how many people actually ask you for them. And off the back of it, we were able to identify that there was more than half of them that weren't needed anymore. And what had happened is every time a new leader or a new manager came in, they wanted to see the information the way that they were used to seeing the information. So we actually had one report that was pretty much identical to 14 other reports. And the only thing that was different was the layout, because the person had gone, I'd like it to say, instead of it saying performance metrics, I'm going to say it's key performance metrics. So there'd be like one word change and it'd be a brand new report. But all of these things, zappers of energy, the zappers of time, the zappers of resources. So sometimes it's as crucial as leaders to go through and look at what we need to stop doing as it is to look at what we need to either continue doing or start doing.
Well, it's been very educational doing this. Actually doing it in our business as well has been, it's not easy, right? But if it was easy, everyone would do it. And frankly, you know, I like a challenge, right? So
it's only not easy doing it the first time. So it's a bit like governance. When you first talk about governance to people, they're like, oh, it's enough to make me cry. It always feels like so dull because it's hard work. We think it's hard. It's only hard because it's change. It's something different from what we're doing already, and therefore it doesn't feel comfortable. And yet the thing we all know, we don't like to admit, but we all know, is we don't grow in our comfort zone. We grow when we're not in our comfort zone. So growth is uncomfortable. That's why we have growing pains. And the same is true in leadership. The same is true in business. It's getting us into that uncomfortable place that allows us to grow and do something different. And now, you know, it's only taken us a week, but we're already working on it. Today was actually a breeze. We've not found it a challenge at all. It's only taken us 5 days to get there, but that's because we've been doing it consistently for 5 days. So it's now no longer that uncomfortable unknown. It's that piece that's going, we know that this works, and yes, it's frustrating that we think we could have done this months ago. And there's that element where I kick myself going, you've been doing this for other organizations for 20 years, why were you not doing it in your own? But you have to go through that. You have to take it on the chin and say, because I didn't. And it's ridiculous that I didn't. And I'm responsible for that and I'm accountable, but I won't let that happen again.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a continual process of change, right? But I think to start with, going through transformational change with a coach or within a business is tough, right, at the beginning. But actually, when you start getting used to it, it becomes really enjoyable. The whole process is actually really quite fun now. And I'm really enjoying working out which parts of my, you know, like the 80-20 rule, like 80% of my time, I don't need to do these things. Yeah. So if I focus on the 20% that really needs doing, that's going to move our business forwards, then that's what I'm going to focus on. And it's working out. If I don't do those 80, is it actually going to affect me in my daily life? Not at all. It's going to actually, so what am I doing with 80% of my time? I'm wasting it on tasks that are kind of irrelevant really in the scheme of moving things forward. So yeah, I'm quite excited about it. It's given me a whole new lease of life, really focusing on the important stuff, you know?
Well, yeah, but because you can see so much more movement as a result of the action you've taken. And that's what gives us drive. It's what motivates us when we see that there actually was something that happened as a result of our action rather than just more work that needed to be done. There was actually something positive. You have somebody come back and go, that really helped, or I really learned something. And the thing about change is it is uncomfortable. I mean, one of the things that I always do is get people to fold their arms and then say, do me a favor, unfold them and now fold them the other way. And it's hilarious to watch because some people could do it without looking, but you can see that look of confusion and that uncomfortableness, and they can do it. They can cross their arms the other way. But when you ask them how it feels, it's like, oh, it felt a bit uncomfortable. I had to really think about it. Whereas when you just fold them, it's a way of life. So you don't think about it, it just happens. And that's what change is. It's about saying, actually, you've just got to be more conscious about it. You're taking conscious action. Sorry, we've got a little squeaker here on my chair. But it's about making sure that we're doing the right, we're doing the right thing. And as we're doing something new, initially it will feel a bit uncomfortable because we're having to really think about it. So we're employing all of our senses. But before long, a bit like driving a car, when you first get in, you're very conscious about all the stuff you don't know. But now, if you're like me, you've been driving for a lot of years, actually, a lot of it is in your subconscious brain. You subconsciously, you are checking your mirrors, you're looking about what's going around, but you're not thinking, I must check my mirrors. It's like it just happens because you always do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're relaunching these leadership workshops, right? And that's on top of everything else we're doing. That's actually really quite exciting. I'm quite enjoying learning more about leadership and the new skills that are actually needed in business these days. So yeah,
it's exciting times. I mean, every year we run a mastermind group, but we always align the skills to say, what are the most needed skills for the next 12 months? And let's make sure that it includes those, because what's the point of saying we're just going to keep running the one that we ran before? Because that's not demonstrating we're evolving. So the main points of the mastermind, the way it works and its infrastructure, is going to run in the same proven, tried and tested way that it's been running for years. But each year, as you know, we adapt it and we bring in new experts to make sure that we're adjusting for those new skills. So in the new one, which we are now open for applications, we are ensuring that we're including in there hybrid working and also resilience, how to build that resilience for yourself and for your team, on top of all the other skills that we know remain really important to leaders today. So if anybody watching this is interested in how they can actually use the power of a mastermind group and that peer-to-peer learning, as well as gaining the knowledge and skills from world-leading experts on top of personal coaching, then please do get in touch. We would love to have a chat with you and see whether or not you could be one of our next mastermind group.
Very much so. And thank you so much for sharing all this amazing information. And thanks to everyone for listening. I'm just getting used to the new sunshine hours.
Fabulous. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, and you.
Thanks for listening to Master Mindset. Please don't forget to follow wherever you listen